So here I am at the Ark Encounter. That thing is absolutely massive. I'm sitting here in the parking lot looking at it. Can't wait to get inside, take a look around.
Come make a selfie.
And stability in turbulent water. And these keels will need to have some flexibility. This ship this long, there'll be lots of bowing and flexing and, from bow to stern. And the keels, they need to absorb that stress. So, we're pinning the keel boards together in such a way that the lower members are not scarfed in order to manage.
Perché guardare qualsiasi volta
It's not that wrong. My.
You guys are gonna be over here, right? What? Yeah.
1,000 years ago. Well,
So if you're still here, I went to see the Ark Encounter, obviously. If you're watching this video, you can figure that out. And I didn't put any real narration or anything in there, just because I wanted to allow people to be able to see it just as it is and not with any kind of commentary over the top of it. But I just kind of felt like I needed to add a little bit of my own personal experience to that to, I don't know, give perspective as to why I was doing what I was doing. So in back in 1994, I think it was. I was taking a bunch of biology classes. I was taking genetics and evolution, cell biology, zoology, human anatomy, and physiology, and I think botany, like all in the same year while I was in college. And as I was taking all those classes, we were getting hit with a lot of evolutionary theory stuff, and they basically were saying that was the foundation of biology. And I just had a lot of questions that weren't answered by the professors or in the textbooks or anything like that. And I met a homeschool mom, and she gave me some of her books to read. And I looked at they were looking at the same evidence, but they were looking at it through two different lenses. And so I got her books, and I got the books that I had in college, and I set them down side by side, and I read kind of point by point through each argument. And I had a lot of internal frustration over that, because I was like, these can't both simultaneously be true. And if they can be, I can't figure out how to reckon these things. So as I was going through that struggle, there was I just felt kind of like I was being torn in two, you know. And I just want the truth. I just want to know what is the truth. And so I went to Ken Ham was having some like conferences at that time where they put on a slideshow the last couple days, and he would give all the information. And during the breaks, I would go up to the front. They'd say, if you have any questions, you know, da, 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 da. So I went up there, and I talked with Ken Ham almost during every single break that there was. And as I was talking to him during the breaks, he was a very friendly, nice guy, and he wasn't offended by any of the questions that I had, and he just answered them as honestly as he could. And if he didn't exactly have an answer, he would say, well, this is the best that I have for you right now, but you know, more to come at some point in the future, I hope, you know, but this is the information we currently have. And so anyway, it led me on a journey of looking at everything through two lenses, through looking at it through an evolutionary lens, and then also looking at it through a creation point of view, essentially. And you know, anytime you're going to take that dive, you're going to reach a place where you realize that you can't hold two views simultaneously and get them to reconcile. So I looked at some of the information on people that were trying to reconcile those 2 points of view, and day-age theory and some of those things. I just didn't ever find those to be very logical or satisfying. And so I went down a long, hard road in my life of just kind of desperately searching, wanting to have answers, and not really feeling like anybody was there to really supply those answers in the way that I needed. And I kind of come full circle from basically being an atheist to being an agnostic to being a believer to basically going back to being an atheist and living as an atheist again, to coming back to being a believer again. And that's a interesting, long, hard process at times. And I just had I stopped by to see the widow of a friend of mine that had just passed away a couple of years ago, and I had a lot of long conversations with him about God and about all the things that I didn't know. And he ended up going to seminary school, and he became pastor of a church for a while, and a couple different churches. And so anyway, through those conversations that I had with him, I got a lot of the answers that I didn't think there were answers for a lot of the questions that I had. But one thing I'm finding out is anytime I have a question, if I look and I search it out, I will find an answer. And it may not be a whole, completely, totally satisfying answer necessarily, but there are answers there for some of those questions. So in relation to like the biblical flood, I thought this exhibit was kind of interesting because it attempts to answer some of those questions that I think a lot of people have, like how did all the animals fit on the ark, and how do da-da-da-da-da. And as you're walking through this creation museum, they took the time to try to answer a lot of those questions. And that was one thing that I really respected about Ken Ham then, and I really respect him as a person now. And just to see the arc of his life, what he's done, and the effort that he's put into this is truly phenomenal in its own right. You know, you look at what a lot of people accomplish in their lifetimes and the impact that they make, and you know, they impact their immediate families and usually their local communities, but to reach much further outside of that, it's an interesting thing to see that kind of an accomplishment. And so that was one of the reasons that I really wanted to go by and see that Ark Encounter, because I know a lot of people have gone through there, and you know, they'll get 7,000 to 9,000 people a day at times going through there. We went through at a time when there wasn't a lot of people there, so that was helpful for me. I don't like being in crowded places for a couple different reasons, which I may explain in a different video, but at this time, leave it at that. And then we stopped at they had a buffet there, and we stopped and kind of ate there. But every single detail in that museum was, even in the dining area, it was just interesting to see the amount of thought and the amount of work that went into that presentation. So just on its own merit for that, it was definitely worth seeing. So even if you're not a believer, don't want to become a believer, that is something I think is something worth seeing, because that was an interesting display, and it didn't just spontaneously generate, let's put it that way. Somebody put a lot of work into that to make that happen. A lot of people put a lot of work into that. And I've done a lot of things throughout my life, built a lot of buildings, built a lot of things, and not everybody gets to see who the builder was. But to know the builder personally, you know, and I think that's kind of like my experience with God has kind of been that same thing. It's like, if you look at the creation and you look at what's here, you see what's been built, and there's an interest that I have to know who is this, what is this that has made all of these things. And one of the reasons I keep chickens is when you're hatching the eggs out, you know, there's no feathers inside that egg. You put that egg in the incubator or underneath the chicken, and it's goo. You know, everybody's cracked an egg and seen what that looked like. But by the time you're done, 21 days later, or 28 days later, or however many days for what type of bird you got, that thing hatches out, and it's a bird, you know, and it's got a little tooth on the end of its beak that they use to scratch at the shell to get out of there. It's like, how did that come about? How do you go from goo to feathers? You know, you need information to do that. So, you know, where does all that information come from? And that doesn't come out of a muddy pond someplace that's struck by lightning. Information doesn't come from that. So where does that information come from? So that's kind of a touch point where I came to. It's hard to have faith in God sometimes, because it's, you know, the world's not pointed in that direction for sure. But to just stop and think about some of those things honestly, think about some of those questions, is just, I feel like it really opens the mind up to be able to have an experience in life that's not possible unless you start asking some of those questions. So anyway, I hope you enjoy the rest of the video.
Has spread across the world through its translation into over 1,300 different languages, with new translations beginning all the time.
The Bible has played an enormous role in the shaping of lives of untold millions of